Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day today. And cool, for my second video, because I thought, look, I'm excited to finally be on my little YouTube journey. I want to share a little story that I had, just about a little experience that I had, nothing crazy, but I met Bill Wyman's neighbour in a bookshop in London, of all places. So okay, let me get on to telling the story, because this is the kind of stuff that I swear could only happen in London or like in any of these like big cities. And for context, I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in New Zealand, like I've lived around like quite a few places, and of course London now. And this one is, it's so English, I think. And I've got more stories of this, of like, a couple of degrees of separation. And yeah, so anyway, without any further ado, let's just get straight into it. So, I was in one of the local bookshops in London called Waterstones. Hopefully, I'll put a picture of it like somewhere here of what it looks like. It's really cute, like one of your typical, just lovely big bookshops. It's super nice and yeah, super fun. So I was just having a little mill around for books, because I always have like a million and one books to read next to my bedside table. I've been reading ever since I was a kid. Thanks, Mum, for that. And yeah, so anyway, I was in one of my local Waterstones bookshops, actually just off of just on the King's Road, which, if you're familiar with the 60s and yeah, and that kind of lore, as it were, King's Road was very famous during the 60s because it was the home of Mary Quant's initial boutique, where she actually invented the miniskirt. Hopefully I'm getting that right. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me below. But yeah, so the King's Road is very famous, had a lot of very cool boutiques. It was very synonymous with the 60s, very, very fun. And yeah, and it's like, and hence why I'm wearing this very fun little like psychedelic piece, which if you followed me, or if you follow me on my Instagram, this has been a mainstay and has been a feature in my wardrobe for a little bit. And I just love it. It's super, super fun, very colorful. Anyway, so getting back to the Waterstones, and I was milling around looking for a new book. I can't remember for the life of me what I got. I have my, oh, actually, I do have my book pile. I was getting this book, which is Seven Wonders of the Ancient World by Bethany Hughes, because I love this woman. I am a huge history nerd and have watched her on TV, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, when I was in this bookshop and I thought, cool, I need another book. I really don't. I have like millions of books, it feels like. But anyway, so I was looking at this book, looking at the new releases, da da da. And as I was heading out to pay, I saw this book just literally right near the checkout. And it is Bill Wyman's Chelsea. So it is the cutest book. It's basically like every street in the borough of Chelsea. So anyway, I was looking, and when I saw this book, picked it up and I was reading through it, and it was just like, oh wow, this is really cute, and it's got like all the streets and details. And yeah, like he'll talk about things like the Chelsea bun, like a recipe for it, like that are very unique to the area, which is just so cute. Like literary Chelsea, because another thing of where like some famous residents have lived, like Charles Dickens, Oscar Wilde, quite a number of like very famous literary musical residents have lived across and lived within the borough of Chelsea, Bill Wyman certainly being another one of them. And Bill Wyman, in case you do not know, but I'm sure many of you will, Bill Wyman was the bassist for the Rolling Stones for many, many years, joined them in the early 60s. I can't remember the exact dates right now, but anyway, but he has been a long standing member of the Rolling Stones, left them in recent years. And yeah, so it was just, anyway, when I was reading through this book and just having a bit of just smiling through it, because a lot of the places I know where I walk through it, and it's just really lovely. and it's lovely and just wholesome because it's such a gorgeous neighborhood and just a lovely borough. It's like it feels, if you've never been to London, it feels very much like a cute little village. Like everyone, like it is very bougie, but it also feels like sort of traditional, like a London village, which is really nice. And when you get away from all the touristy things, granted, you are still going to have a lot of tourists coming through and have that feel, but I just love it. It's really lovely. Everyone has been so sweet whenever I've been like going around the place. So it's a lovely, lovely part of London. And yeah, so anyway, here I was minding my business, reading through this book and thinking, I don't need another book, but you know, having a good old laugh reading through. And this tall Englishman comes over to me, like he must have been like 6'2" or something. I mean, look, anyone is taller than me. I'm tiny. And so anyway, he comes over to me and he says, "Oh," he says, "that's my neighbour Bill's written that book." And I was just like, as in like the Rolling Stone Bill Wyman. And he said, yes. He said he's poured like a huge amount of time and effort into this. He's gone to all the streets, like every single street in this borough is talked about in this book. And then the neighbour's wife came along too, and she was like, "Oh yes, you know, he's put so much research and so much time into this." And I was just like, "Oh wow, this is so cool." And then, so I was saying to the husband of the wife, you know, the neighbours of Bill Wyman, I said, "Does he still keep up the music?" He said, "Yes, yes, he does. You know, he's busy. I mean, he's like, Bill's in his 80s now, but he just carries on, and he's just can't stop him. He's just like, nothing is like detracting him from making music and just getting out there." And I was just like, "Oh wow, this is so cool," and it's such a small world. And they were saying to me, yeah, like Bill's lived in Chelsea for like 20 odd years. And they actually, and I was, because I was nosy and I'm always like, "Oh, well, do you know whereabouts he is?" And they said yes, like he was on one of these streets. I'm not going to say it for obvious reasons because of privacy. I don't know the exact place, thankfully, but it's on a street where, I mean, I go for quite a lot of walks around Chelsea, and I was just like, "Oh, like it's quite a pretty street as well." Again, I'm not going to say it because like I don't know the house, thank goodness, you know, privacy is really important. So anyway, they were saying to me that it's just like that he's been there for years, like he's got his daughters, which is keeping him busy. And yeah, and just, I mean, the guy is just like continuing on being fantastic, and it was so cool. And it was just one of these, like, in like the grand scheme of things, I realize that it's kind of like just, you know, something just small, what have you. But for me, coming from like a very small, I mean, coming from New Zealand, which like I know a lot of friends of mine have, like a lot of friends of mine, of course, are from there. Like this kind of stuff just does not happen to us. And I think it's really fun, and you kind of forget when you're coming to these big cities that there are so many people, especially in London, where so much of like the 60s history has happened. I mean, one of my favorite places to go to, just as like a little aside, is Carnaby Street in central London, which is, that was very famous as well during the 60s because it had some incredible boutiques. If I can insert pictures somewhere here about like Lord John, and yeah, and just like they had so many incredible boutiques during this time. For me, that is something that sadly Carnaby Street is not like that anymore. If I can put another picture in here of what it looks like today, just as an example, like it's still really lovely, but it's very much commercialized, as you would expect. And yeah, it's like it is something that I would have loved to see like during the heyday of the 60s, what it would have looked like. The same with King's Road, really, like walking along, and you know, with it all just being fabulous, like the mini skirts, the fashion, the psychedelic, like the psychedelia of it all would have been so cool to see in its heyday. But alas, you know, this is 2024, and you know, we can't ask for much. I mean, but you know, as another little thing, I literally had a lady who was like probably in her 60s or 70s because I was wearing some white go-go boots, not vintage, they were like modern versions, but I literally had a really sweet lady who actually offered, like, she said, oh, let's go and get a coffee together, because she loved what I was wearing. It wasn't exactly this dress, but it was something else very psychedelic. And yeah, it's just like this kind of stuff just happens around London, which is really fun. And I think it's also just, if you're open to it, if you're open to people just being like, just talking to you about things, and it is honestly pretty amazing. Like, you know, what you can see, like who you can meet around here, purely by just walking around or just engaging with, in my case, literally just a book that Bill Wyman had written. And it's like, for me, it's kind of like, oh, it's a bit of a fun sort of thing, because I think I heard somebody say it's like you're or however many 3 degrees of separation from certain people. And I was just like, and I really do think that is so true. It's such an interesting thing, and it's one of these fun perks of living in London. Yeah, so anyway, that is my little story for the day, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you'll stick around for a little bit, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I am still in the very, very early days of figuring this whole thing out. And yes, as you know, I've said, I think in my first video, I'm still kind of low-key terrified of doing all this, because I have never really been on video. I've always preferred to just do like static imagery and that. But I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna put myself out there, get out of my comfort zone, because, and this is very much out of the comfort zone. And yeah, so I just thought I'm going to start by just sharing some fun stories that I've experienced around London. I'll also share some more things about, like, you know, fashion and like health and fitness, because I am a huge gym girly as well, like very big time into that. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll no doubt have seen me posing like at the gym, or training with my personal trainer, doing some boxing, which is, it is exhausting, let me tell you that. But anyway, that's for another video. Thank you so much again for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate your time. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you again in another video soon. Thanks. Bye, guys.